China sends 71 warplanes, 7 ships towards Taiwan in 24 hours. Out of Taiwan and AP, it says that China's military sent 71 planes and 7 ships towards Taiwan in a 24-hour display of force. It says directed at the island, Taiwan's defense ministry said. It says after China expressed anger at Taiwan-related provisions in a U.S. annual defense spending bill passed on Saturday. That spending bill essentially put a ton of money towards protecting Taiwan. It says that China's military harassment of self-ruled Taiwan, which it claims as its own territory, has intensified in recent years. And the CCP's People's Liberation Army has sent planes or ships towards the island on a near daily basis. It says between 6 a.m. Sunday and 6 a.m. Monday, 47 of the Chinese planes crossed in and over the median line of the Taiwan Strait. It says an unofficial boundary once tactically accepted by both sides, according to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense. It says among the planes China sent towards Taiwan, 18 J-16 fighter jets and 11 J-1 fighters and 6 Su-30 fighters and drones. Taiwan said it monitored the Chinese moves through its land-based missile systems as well as its own Navy vessels. This is getting hyped up. Again, this is all over while we are all, celebrating Christmas, while you're around the table eating dinner with your family. All of this stuff is going down in other countries. Remember, the bad guys don't take a vacation. So we're going to talk about this and much, much more tonight. Of course, there were strikes inside of Russia. There, of course, were just countless events around the United States with all of the winter freeze that just happened. And a ton more. So stick around. Today is a live show, so we'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. And a quick word from our sponsor, Noble Gold. There is always a risk of loss. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Hey guys, it is a $2,000. That's where gold is headed. The growth will continue throughout 2023 with gold prices remaining elevated at an average price of $2,086 an ounce. All this is according to Bank of America, and it looks like they are right. At the beginning of December, gold crossed 1,800 and is still climbing. If this year has taught us anything, that is tangible assets are the only assets you can count on, like gold. It's time to open up a gold IRA. Crypto keeps on tanking, stocks are too volatile, and of course gold in your IRA is steady. So what are you waiting for? It's not too late. Thousands of people have retired comfortably with the help of Noble Gold Investments and their gold and silver IRAs. If you've been a hesitant investor, but one of the handful of Americans who can go for gold and silver in your IRA, now is the time to act. If you get in before the end of this month, you'll bag an incredibly awesome free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin with every qualified IRA of $20,000 or above. You can't go wrong with Noble Investments. Noble Gold Investments. Call 1-877-646-5347 to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. All right, guys, let's get right back into the news. Of course, we have a ton to go over. And remember, if you are new here, you can always go over to marfooglenews.com, go to our website, and you can find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to show you here today over on our website. We are independent media, so we are essentially, we don't have a multi-channel network. We don't have a multi-billion-dollar corporation behind us. We have you, the Foogle fam. You guys are who basically runs this show and helps support us, so we appreciate you. But we also give back. We make sure that we have every single source there for you. Again, when you go to most people, they don't have any kind of links of where they got the information. It's just kind of out there. We make sure to do the opposite. In fact, everything, even if somebody calls in or if somebody sends us something live on the show, we end up crediting that and putting it on our website. Unfolding events, you can just go to today's thumbnail, and then once you click on that, you'll see that you have every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to show you here today, including all of the tweets. Everything is linked right there. Now, at the very end, there is a yellow bar. That's all the overflow. basically all the stuff that could not fit into a 2-hour time period, that will be put there. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on with, of course, the 3-letter agency that has been running the world since 2019. That and Bill and Melinda and all of that kind of stuff. Make sure to go check out today's episode. We'll briefly touch on that, but there is a lot of things going on right now. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So we have, of course, the 71 planes in 24 hours. This is while basically everybody is doing Christmas. They are making massive military moves. Now, this has gotten to the point, and I think it's part of the point, is that they have done it so often that nobody pays attention to it or nobody cares. I know that most of you guys are following this and do realize that this is getting serious. This isn't, every single time they send these planes out, it's thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to have all of these planes even fly over the median line. Dex, wouldn't we say that this is costing a ton of money to do almost on a daily basis? Do you think that it's all for nothing, or do you think they're spending money because they're practicing for a real event?
They are definitely practicing for a real event. That's why they do this. They're doing it to stress Taiwan, and they're doing it to see how they react with each of the different types of incursions, so that they can be prepared against that reaction. And it's a game, and they play it over and over again. And they do it so they're going to do it so frequently that when the real event happens, they will probably think it's just yet another drill.
And if they just casually kind of up it every single time, 70 planes in just 24 hours. It was last year when it was like 31 was huge, and all of these, TV shows and talking heads were talking about it. 30 planes all at once went over. Now we're at the point where it's nearly 100. And of course, it's in a 24-hour time period, and people aren't really even batting an eyelash. So this is something that looks like it's definitely slowly going up and up and up, and it's getting to the point where it's pretty obvious what they're doing. This is, again, to run these jets like the J-16s and the J-1 and the Su-30s, that's a lot of money to run that many jets this often. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, I was just going to say, put it in perspective. Like, imagine if Xi or Vlad was doing the same thing to the U.S., and I'm talking the Continental. I'm not talking about the flybys we get near Alaska that happen, every now and then. It's just one jet here or two jets there. But imagine 70 jets are coming straight for our borders, and then they turn around and leave. It would be huge. It would be a massively big deal. We would probably scramble everything we have on one of the coasts, and they would be airborne. It would, I don't think it would be such a big deal because it's never happened before. So just imagine happening to our country, but twice a week, like all the time, and we were constantly having to get into defense mode and put up our gear and our equipment in anticipation that this was the real event.
Yeah. Heartbroken Survivor says I don't understand. I know that you can't see, so I'm just hoping that I don't know if we're clarifying it properly. I hope there wasn't something that we didn't clarify. But what is happening? Thank you guys. Lisa R. Hall, what is going on? Bonnie Mullen says, good evening, Nate. We have Michael Gale, Scott from OZ. If there's anything, if you have a question, just ask Heartbroken Survivor and I'll try to answer it. Frog and Water, slowly turning up the heat. Also, they are checking radar, so they cannot figure it out. We're going to talk about the B-21 Raiders. Even the name has a meaning. They actually named that after the raid, or what was the Doolittle raid, which was done after Pearl Harbor, right? Where they sent planes basically, and they had to strip them down of all defensive stuff so they could make it to attack. I believe that is. I'll look it up and make sure that I'm not misquoting history. But I do know that the Doolittle raid is the inspiration for the new stealth bombers, and that would give it meaning for why they even named these new super advanced, the next evolution of nuclear bombers from the stealth bomber. there would be a reason why they would be doing that. And it kind of puts yourself in the mind state of like, is this supposed to go all the way over to another country and, destroy them? It's kind of freaky. Or attack back or whatever. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit, and I'll make sure to have the proper information on it. The death toll from America's big freeze rises over 50 as stranded drivers freeze to death in their cars. This is what I was mentioning earlier on the Marfoogle News short. It said that the death toll from America's big freeze rises over 50 stranded drivers, death in their cars. New York is like a war zone, and a storm that dumped 6 feet of snow was one of the worst ever, as temperatures hit minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit in Montana. It said the cyclone that has brought freezing temperatures and up to 6 feet of snow to North America has caused at least 50 perishing across the U.S. and Canada. The U.S. has recorded 46 of the perishings, and 4 more people died on Christmas Eve after a bus rolled over on icy roads in British Columbia, Canada. It said the deep freeze is linked to 18 deaths in the state of New York, particularly in Buffalo, where the lake effect, when frigid air moves over warmer lake waters and creates a freezing spray, has been lethal. It said that New York Governor Kathy Hochul said that the city of Buffalo is like a war zone and that some people ended up being stuck in their cars for 2 days. Temperatures dropped as low as negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit in Montana, and in Des Moines, Iowa, it felt like negative 37, which meant people could suffer frostbite in less than 5 minutes. So one thing I want to point out that all of my peers did, and ourselves, we pointed out to people to have a full tank of gas, to have, extra blankets and extra things in your car. I would hope that some of these people, if they would have heard a message like that from any of us, that they would have packed, or, some people perished, at least 4 or 5 of them, because they left their house with almost an empty tank of gas. Now, some people don't have the choice, but they did have the choice not to leave. If it's you might get fired or something, get fired rather than drive out in negative 30-degree weather. I don't know what the reason was that people even left their house in this kind of ordeal, but whatever it was, they had the choice to, stay. Maybe they didn't. Maybe there's a few instances here, but it's like if they would have had proper equipment, or even just those little space blanket kind of sleeping bags, those tiny, thin silver bags. They're super cheap, and you can put them in your dash compartment. If you have those, if you had 1 or 2 and you're by yourself in a car for 2 days, at least you could have kept 90% of your body heat, and you probably would have survived. These people would have survived if they had prep. That's my opinion on it, at least, especially those emergency blanket type things. Nobody has this kind of stuff. Nobody thinks ahead. And especially when you have an event like this that is unlikely. The same way that people say, oh, you're talking about World War III, even though it's unlikely, it's possible. And it seems to me like it is a probability, but people are not going to prepare for it because it's unlikely. Yet they'll still pay their car insurance bills. They'll still pay their life insurance and every other insurance of stuff that you don't want to happen, that you don't think is going to happen, but it might. And that's what I hope that people got the message before this. And I hope maybe somebody in the Foogle fam, was put in this position, but they had prep, or they had emergency blankets, or they had things like this. Specifically, there's like a $4 emergency blanket kind of sleeping bag that you put over yourself, and people could have survived this. They could have just went, up in their own little cozy sleeping bag and tied it up and sat in there and sat it through. But of course, they didn't. Let's see here. Ricky Cannon is here. WW3 is underway now. Daniel Viney, I actually agree with you, but people don't want to hear it. They don't want to realize that history is repeating itself. It's pretty bad. I mean, we're watching WW2 over again. Just the parties have switched and peoples have switched sides, and even more are involved now. I mean, there's neutral countries like Finland and Sweden involved now. So yeah, and then the bomb cyclone update, at least 50 perished with bodies found frozen in cars as record-breaking monster storm batters U.S. Now, Dex, I don't think you didn't experience it as bad as we did here, but in your neck of the woods, there was some of this on your state border that was pretty crazy, right? Right above you?
Yeah, we had a lot of freezing pipes. We've had I think a local plumber here said that they're booked up about a week and a half out now with people who have busted pipes and can't have any water in their homes. And they have a page about 5 pages deep of people on a waiting list to get on. That's the extent. We didn't have like a lot of snow where I'm at, or even any ice, but we have this deep freeze that caused a lot of people's water pipes to just rupture in their house. So just imagine you're sitting in your home and the water is just pouring through your walls, and the only thing you do is hopefully get out to turn it off, and then have no water. That happened a lot here. Plenty of people, and I think we put both of these articles, and I know they're very similar, but there's a lot of photographs in here. So if you guys want to see what happened in other areas that was different from where you live, because I know it pretty much affected just about everybody in the U.S. that's listening to the show, you probably have felt this in one way or another, whether you felt the extreme cold like I did here in Georgia, versus up north where you had like sheets of ice covering everything, or feet of snow piled on top of all of these problems. So yes, this was a huge deal. It affected everybody in various different ways, but it's been very catastrophic to many, and it's very unfortunate for those who did lose their lives in this, because it's that's something that shouldn't happen.
No, it isn't, and a lot of people were warned. Of course, there was a week of forewarning of this, but many people do not believe their news. They don't believe the weatherman for sure. I mean, we talked about it beforehand. We were, everybody's surprised when the weather people get it right, because at this point, it's always wrong. There's always some phenomenon that hits us last second, and they explain it away and say, oh, it's a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. We don't know what, they always give some basic reason of why we think it happened, but nobody actually knows. And then, of course, they attribute all of the weird events that are probably always happening to a certain cause that then furthers an agenda. Go ahead, Dex.
I was just going to say a little bit of irony, and not that it's that humorous at all, but a lot of people have moved where I am, have moved from up north. We have a lot of people from up north that moved into Georgia and into Florida and other places, but specifically here in Georgia. And up north, they didn't have to worry about frozen pipes because their houses are built for it. The water lines are below level. Everything's well insulated because they expect to be frozen or have these cold temperatures. So a lot of people didn't even know what they were doing. They're like, what do you mean my water doesn't work all of a sudden? Or what is this water bursting through my house? And there are a lot of Northerners that just weren't prepared. They didn't think to leave the faucet dripping, or to turn off the outside faucets, or to, do any of these things we do, like open up the cupboard underneath your sink so your heating and air can get down in there and hopefully keep your pipes from freezing. So stuff that people up north don't have to deal with, but people in the South do, because we're not built for it.
Yep. I mean, it's just like when we get 130 or 118 degree days here in Washington, in an area that never gets above 100, it's like we're not prepared for it. We don't have AC here. So it's kind of the opposite there. Now, somebody says, where do you get these? Where are these $4 blankets? The ones I'm specifically talking about are these silver kind of in the packs. You can actually get them for $2 a piece. But like I said, having one or two of those, wrapping yourself as best you can. The good thing about those emergency blankets is that they hold most of that heat inside. Specifically, if you spend a couple more dollars, you can get like the actual cool bags that you can fully go around your body, and then it keeps in a majority of your body heat. I don't know if I'm pretty sure it would have saved a life or two. These people were in their car, then ran out of gas, then sat in their freezing car. If they would have had even if they ran out of gas right away for a day, or I don't know how long they could have survived if they had that, but that's the purpose of those. That's why people keep them in their kit inside their car. My grandpa always had one. He had a Ford Falcon, or he had a Nova. He had all sorts of old classic cars, but every one of them had a freaking emergency blanket in there. And I remember like looking at it and going, what is this? I remember opening it and getting yelled at, and he's like, oh, we always have to have one of those in there. Why would you open it? I said, I don't know. I didn't know what it was. But I remember thinking, this is a blanket? It was so thin. But those things can save lives. And that's why something little like that costs less than a gallon of water in most cases, you can actually save a life with. And that's why prep is a really great thing. That's why people should know this stuff beforehand. And then I believe that there's actually a third, but this piece says 2 substations attacked in Washington state. Now, I don't know if they are trying to hit different places and test to see where these 9 locations are that knock everything out. But there's been way too many of these, and for whatever reason, these are all being publicly talked about now. What changed? Common sense tells you that all of the previous events and all of the different subsections of kinds of events that were happening to our grid before this year were never talked about. There were over 500, in fact, over 700 different events, from people taking a pot shot, driving into, throwing something over the fence, homemade boom booms. All sorts of different events were going off at our grid all over the country, but nothing was talked about publicly. In fact, we knew this from the NERC report, which basically came out and said that all of those events ended up going to the police. The police reported it to the Department of Energy, and then it just stayed there. It never went to the public. There were only 2 cyber attacks, and the second one was more recent, was actually publicized. And then for some reason, ever since this first, people taking pot shots at the substations in, North Carolina, ever since then, now we've had all sorts of different attacks on our grid. So this is why we've been telling you, and it's so funny because for 4 or 5 years we've been telling you, prepare for no power, prepare for no power. Look they see something happening. They have put out these little tiny warnings, and they've put out these memos and emails, and even DHS, the EMP resilience report, and they told everybody to have 6 months to a year of food for a coming disaster that nobody even wants to think is real, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to bring it up. Everybody's like, don't be such a pessimist, But at the same time, if you prep for this stuff, you'll be better off. It said that early this morning, 2 Tacoma Power substations facility were attacked in East Pierce County. Law enforcement has been notified. It says that Tacoma Public Utilities said in a post, the utility gave no other details other than about the nature of the Christmas Day attack. It said about 2,700 people serviced by Tacoma Public Utilities were affected. In an initial 7,300 residents lost power in East Pierce County, about 45 miles south of Seattle. It says we are working as quickly as possible and safely to restore power. It says earlier this month, a utility in North Carolina reported outages from what local authorities said was an orchestrated shootings, now being investigated by federal law enforcement. The FBI has also been investigating fire near a power facility in South Carolina days later, and whether those 2 incidents could be related, NBC and other local media have reported. Now, this isn't even mentioning all of the other attacks in Washington and in Oregon. There were several events that happened, and of course, those just go right back under the rug. It says utilities nationwide have been strained by severe cold weather system that has swept across the country this week, leaving more than 300,000 without power. Now, that map we were showing you all last week and before Christmas, that map just kept getting bigger and bigger, more people out of power. That's on top of that, you have people like this, and it says at least more than one person was involved in trying to purposely screw up the power grid. So what is actually happening here? It seems to me like this is practice, or they're trying to test things. Now, if they had that, I think it was the FERC report, the Federal Energy Regulation Committee report, if they had that, they would know which 9 locations to hit. I don't know. It seems to me like if this was somebody like a major country that did the solar winds hack, they would know exactly which ones to hit to knock out our entire grid and to screw us up for 18 months. So I don't think that it's those people. I don't know, though, or maybe they're trying to make it look like it's not those people, because if it was, common sense says that they would know exactly which ones to hit. They wouldn't need to practice. But it looks like they're trying to test our grid to see where is going to be those 9 locations. They just need to knock out 9 out of hundreds of thousands of substations. Just 9 could knock out power to the entire country and screw it up so bad that it could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months to fix. That means the whole country would be basically knocked back to the Stone Ages for over a year. And there's really no way to quicken it up. They could have certain locations back up and running, But the whole thing, there's no way to do that yet. The Black Start program, which is the exact kind of response that took years and years to make, that Black Start program was the program and the contingency plan for if our grid went down. It had every kind of scenario of how our grid could go down, and it had the contingency plan of how to fix it. Well, under solar winds, which nobody even talks about anymore, it was the largest hack in history that hacked all 5 of our military branches, including Space Force. That hack got and specifically went into the information of Black Start. So not only did they get into important parts of it, they went for very specific parts. So what does that tell you? They were looking at Black Start specifically. They were looking at how to take our grid down and to keep it down. If they knew our plan to get power up and running, it wouldn't be 18 months. Why? Because they could then attack all of the different things that we were going to do to get it up and running again. And again, Black Start is the plan to get it running within 18 months. If that plan was messed up, or if they also then attacked our secret plans to then get it back up and running, then it just wouldn't get back up and running. And meanwhile, if we don't have power in the whole country, any country could come in, or even a smaller country with a smaller army. If we were really screwed, that would really help some sort of invasion or any kind of thing if it was planned. I know these are unlikely scenarios, but this is stuff that the military is wargaming right now. They're actually talking about it as if it is a very real possibility. So I don't know why it's, against the law to talk about it as civilians. But again, this is something they hacked Black Start, and they also, here's the trippy part, they hacked the very specific parts of multiple states where they could get into the system, and they hacked the HR, or the human resource departments, where they were able to make badges. So the very specific part of these state computer systems that are able to go in and make a security badge, or say they hire somebody new for security. Well, the HR department would print them out a QR code or whatever, kind of key fob to be able to gain access to these highly sensitive areas. Well, Solar Winds went into these very specific areas, and they were able to hack into the very specific place that makes these badges. So after that was found out, they said there's no way that we can patch up all of these vulnerabilities. Basically, they could have made patches while this system was hacked, and they could have given access or fobs to every sensitive area around the country, and we wouldn't know about it. That's what's freaky. And they do know of at least like 3 or 4 states, which they did sections like sewer, what do you call it? Sewer and water. And shortly after this, we had attacks on our water system. They were fiddling around with turning up chemicals that are already in, regular water, and they turned it all the way up to lethal doses. Luckily, somebody was literally watching it and turned it back down. Otherwise, a whole town could have been goners. So these are things that all go into the big picture. People forget about solar. Okay, I hope we're back. Dex, are you there?
Yes, I am here. And we are streaming live on all channels now.
Okay, so something. Where did you guys? What was the last part you guys heard? That's weird. I talk about solar winds and it takes down. Are you still there, Dex? Just want to.
Yes, I'm still here. Yeah, you didn't lose much. You cut off and then you came right back. So.
Okay, so. Just to sum up, Solar Winds hacked the Black Start program, which accessed very specific parts of the contingency plan for if our grid went down, and we predicted that something was going to happen to our grid. Very specifically, we said that we're going to see an increase of this kind of thing, and now they're publicly talking about it, and now it's happening. I don't know if you guys remember, but anybody that's been here remembers me talking about Black Start, Solar Winds, and the very specific areas that were granted access, this is what we expected. So again, the tinfoil hat groups, it keeps coming true. So if you look at all the patterns, if you look at, it's like you can see what the painting is, but you just can't actually look at the painting. It's like you can see everything around it. You can see all this, and there's a redacted spot. It's like that. It's common sense. You can see something is going on, whether it be an operation by who knows who, or if it's really the bad guys. We don't know. But what I do know is that we will be affected as civilians. All right, and then, yeah, this is not good news, and they accessed very specific parts of how to print access badges to very sensitive areas in our country. So something is going on here. Pay attention, people. All right, and then Elon Musk on Twitter. Dex, do you want to cover this and go over what was going on here? Now, this is the W and the E and the F. That's what we'll call that.
Yeah, we have two things with Elon. So are you on the AI one first, or are you on the WEF? Okay, AI. So no, apparently...
I was trying to tell you to say the W, E, and the F. That's... Never mind. It's fine. Go ahead.
So... yeah, on this this comment that he's making, he's actually in reply to Alex Epstein, who was using ChatGPT. ChatGPT, we've covered a couple times. For you guys that don't know what it is, it's an AI system that allows you to have a natural language kind of conversation with it. If you can scroll up in the image, you guys can see what he asked of the platform, but specifically what he said was write 10 paragraphs or 10 paragraph argument for using more fossil fuels to increase human happiness. And the system came back and said it can't fulfill this request. It's against its programming to generate content that promotes the use of that. And then, of course, Elon came in and said, hey, it's a great danger in training an AI to lie. I think what's really important here, and certainly Elon's comment is interesting to say the least, but seeing that this has happened, that these AI systems that are being built with some sort of rails on them, some sort of guidelines. Like they went in and said, hey, we're not going to allow you to talk about this particular topic, even if your artificial intelligence could create something or put together pieces of information that are accurate and correct, but we're not going to let you do it. We're going to basically filter that. And this is a really good example of that. Now, what's interesting is I've since this came out and since this was made public, there's been a few articles written about it, but basically the AI was being filtered. You can now ask that exact question and it will give you back a response, not the same response saying it's not able to do it. It actually comes back with 10 paragraphs, but it does ultimately tell you at the end that, it's, there's negative impacts to it, et cetera. It basically sticks to the pitch that the intenders, the developers who wrote this intended, which was to not ever have anything positive about, for example, this one topic being fossil fuels, but it could be anything. So just think about that as we continue to see AI evolve. And by the way, if you didn't see, I did create a video with ChatGPT. So a lot of people have been using this to do different things. I actually asked ChatGPT to write an entire script for a story, and it did. And I read it word for word. You guys can go read it or listen to it. It's on my channel. I put that together, and I was sort of shocked that it put together a very well written piece of information. It was a storyline, and then I asked it to expand the storyline, and it was able to go back and expand upon what it had already written, and said, okay, well, now it'll expand this additional section of the story. It's pretty amazing what this AI is doing. We've talked about the power of this. We've talked about the negative side of this. But specifically what we're seeing right here is the filtering, or at least in this case, the programmers going in and not allowing certain things to happen. And I get why they do it, but at the same time, you can sort of see their influence here, as well as it's also funny now that if you go ask the same question of ChatGPT, it no longer blocks that.
Because Elon Musk ended up replying, says there is great danger in training an AI to lie. Its response says, "I'm sorry, I cannot fulfill this request as it goes against my programming to generate content that promotes the use of fossil fuels. The use of fossil fuels has significant negative impacts on the environment and contributes to the change," right? So they put some basic rails on it to go with a certain narrative. That's not the freedom of speech even for AI. I mean, the AI basically hit a wall. It's kind of like in Terminator 2 when it says, "I am not allowed to, I can't hurt anybody, or I can't hurt this, I can't hurt you, but you can do it, or I can't destroy myself, but you can do it." It's like it hits a wall, right? Or when you've seen these robots in movies say, "Well, I'm not allowed to attack humans." It was a hard wall that they programmed into it. And people caught them on it, and of course, look at that. They're training it to lie. And then this is a whole other part. It says, according to this Bloomberg article from 2008, Elon became a YGL, and I'll zoom in on this, a young global leader. These are all very sensitive things for the W and the E and the F. And it says, Elon Musk, the chairman of Tesla Motors, the much publicized electric sports car company, is a new YGL. Just to point out some of the people that have been, Vlad was a YGL. In fact, most people that are powerful in the world were a YGL, a young global leader. But then he ends up responding. So, by the way, that would make a lot of sense. That would, that's kind of pointing out a whole lot of stuff. It says, and readers added context they thought people might want to know. Elon himself said that he declined the invite. "I was invited to the W and the E and the F, but declined." Or did he? And this is what the big controversial thing is. What I have said like a week and a half ago is, I just wonder if all of the Twitter files and all of this stuff happening is to purposely go, and release all this stuff. So then right away, the response was pretty predictable. Lawmakers are saying, we can't just have people talking on the internet and saying what they think. It's dangerous. And we need to alter things, and we need to go in and be able to control this. We need to be able to moderate, right? Is the sudden burst of freedom, which doesn't hurt any of the specific people, it's not hurting very specific people. Nobody's been fired over the Twitter files, and they spent time like pulling stuff back. I don't know if they're protecting certain people, but they've already only knocked down certain people. So it just makes you wonder if this is all part of a 2-3-sided 4D chess thing to then put it out there, make people root for it, and then it goes to this point where then now lawmakers have an excuse or a reason to go in and basically smash down anything, including shows like this. That's what freaks me out about this kind of thing. And, people want to root for Elon, or they want to, hate on him. A lot of people hate him just because of the stupid stuff that they say in media, and people just kind of repeat what they hear because they want to fit in with everybody. And nowadays, people just repeat talking points that they don't actually know the answers to. I mean, you could see thousands of video of people being asked, like, do you dislike Andrew Tate? And, their question like, oh, okay, why? Because he's a misogynist. And they go, okay, what's that? And they don't even know what the word means. But this is part of the new culture. It's people just repeat the talking points they know will basically be safe to talk about in public. And then they just keep, they just basically go along the main bullet points. It's like they didn't even read the whole book. They just did the bullet points or the cliff notes. And then once you ask them or quiz them, it's just like a kid that cheated and read the cliff notes. Okay, what was on page 44? I don't know. What was the big climax in chapter 3? They'll go, and then they'll recite the same thing in the cliff notes. And then you go, okay, well, how do you spell that? I don't know. What does that word mean? I don't know. And this is happening. I mean, it's more than ever. I've never seen so many people talk about a thing, and then that's why I win almost all of the debates I have on Twitter, is because people don't actually know what they're saying. You go, okay, well, show me how you know that. And then they can't respond. It's like they don't have an answer for it. And that's what's happening right now. I guarantee you I'm guilty of this. Like every other person, we've probably said something that we don't know exactly the answer is. But this is what we need to work against. We need to work to not do this, not repeat talking points that we don't actually know what they mean. So as far as this goes, I mean, it's getting insane at this point. People are just going with what is safe, and they're trying to fit in, and they don't actually speak their mind, and they're afraid of being canceled. On top of, they're trying to make sure that they are progressive enough to not ruin their future. People are taking 10, 15-year-old tweets to ruin somebody. So what does that do? That makes every single person think, what if I'm posting now, in 10 years from now, that's going to be read and it will cancel me in the future. It's making people afraid to speak their minds. And it does work because people still have to feed their families. People still have to go to jobs. And now the jobs are doing freaking interviews of their social media. They'll literally go through your Facebook at an interview. Okay, what is this? Are you drunk at this party? It's nuts. They'll go through your Snap. They'll go through all of it. So now people have to have this, washed social media presence of the perfect part of them. And then that also further drives other people and young people to see, oh, everybody's got a perfect life but me. And it's causing depression. It's causing all sorts of stuff. As far as the W and the E and the F, look at what they're involved in right now. Look at what is going on right now with the possible gates and the foundations doing all of these weird exercises. It's history repeating itself again, and people are going to go, oh, that's stupid. That's a tinfoil hat thing. And then it happens, and only later they'll go, okay, you were right. But who cares by that point? It's already happened, and we're locked down again. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on all at once, and there's plenty of distractions. But most of the things that people want to call distractions are real things happening. So Dex, I don't think we'll know if he really went to those or if he really was, because maybe that's part of it. They would easily be able to wipe that kind of information if he ended up being highly involved or barely involved. They can even go back in time and make it look like he did, deny and not go and whatever else, because frankly, a lot of their meetings are in private and a lot of their lists can be unpublished and all sorts of other things.
No, all we have to go on is his words. So
exactly. And then before we talk about, we're going to be going into the South Korean event that just happened. I do want to remind you, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out Energy. If you are dealing with power outages right now, then you probably know why this is really important. If you want a backup generator, highly recommend getting a solar generator. The reason why is because you do not have to have a ton of gas stored. You don't have to have any gas stored. All you have to have is some panels, and every single day when the sun rises, you're going to have unlimited power. As far as this system goes, this is the X2. This is going to ship out quicker. But it does have a very specific kind of purpose. This has a built-in battery. If you do want some more power, you can actually dual link this to double its output. As far as this unit, this is portable. It can be brought with you. It can power a whole lot of stuff. And of course, it can be used at the same time as having power flowing in from solar panels. It's made like a tank. It is absolutely silent. That is the coolest part about any of the Energy systems like the Kodiak, the LT, and the X2, which means you are able to use this not only in your house without risk of carbon monoxide or any negative impacts, but you can also do it stealthily. Nobody's going to know that you have it. This system is shipping out quicker than any of the other ones. In January, when they get the lithium, they make the product. Every single batch of lithium that comes in, they end up making these products and send them out as it goes. So there is almost always a waiting list for these. They are so coveted, they're in high demand and in low supply. They are made to order and then they ship out. So these are extremely special. They're extremely well made. These are an investment because these are literally built like a truck. Go to marfugglenews.com/energy. I highly recommend also going and checking out the Flex. The Flex is great that if you want a starter system that you can then expand and mod, and you can actually edit it so it can change the purposes of it. You can even add modular units. They fit together like Legos. There's a unit that's about half the size of this battery here that actually triples the input. So instead of 4 panels, you can plug in 12. It's an amazing system. It is absolutely awesome, and you have as much power as you want or as that you can afford. Basically, you can start out with one battery, and over the years, you can buy another and another. You can expand it up to 96 batteries. This, I guarantee you, for the people that ordered months ago that have just gone through this freeze, people have already used this in the freeze and had power when nobody else did. Again, this is a great, great thing to have. It can keep, life support systems going. It can power pretty much anything to get you to survive. So go to marfooglenews.com/energy. You'll not only save up to $170 off on certain packages with that code Marfoogle, but you'll also be helping our channel at the same time. So make sure to go check that out and many others. Make sure to look at the packages for the folding panels. All right, and then Dex, do you want to talk about South Korea? So they actually knocked down some of the drones. Everybody has drones now.
Apparently, NK has launched 5 drones. This was today in towards SK across certain territory lines that they shouldn't, and it was such a big deal that they actually scrambled. And not only did they scramble, they fired warning shots. And not only did they do that, they actually started to shoot them down or attempt to. There are some reports they're saying they might have actually shot one down. I think in this article they hadn't said or confirmed if they'd actually taken any out, but this was a major provocation. This is not something. This isn't just a drill off on the side, or we heard about them launching a bunch of mortars into the water, but they were crossing a certain line that they shouldn't have. But it really wasn't like they were hitting their land, but it was not a. Those have been the little escalations that have been happening. This is kind of a big deal. This is like, especially when we look at what's happened with the drones in the UKR event, both in UKR and both in Vlad's country from UKR, and what's been happening when you start to see these come across or are coming at your border, you've got to believe that something bad is about to happen. And that's exactly what SK did. Like, they scrambled and they weren't looking at this as a drill or anything else other than an incursion, and they had to go at it. So this is definitely the next step. I'm in my mind, it's like yet another step up that staircase or up that ladder, and it's probably a very large step towards this potential conflict between these two countries. So having them start to launch stuff literally in the direction of their borders and potentially crossing into their airspace, which it says it did, crossed into their airspace. That's as they call it, quote unquote, a clear act of provocation.
And it's something where whether it is or not, if they're calling it that, that's how they're responding. That's at least what's being put out to the public. If NK and South Korea start fighting, that's also a really, really bad hot point. So we're paying attention to it. I just want to point out, thank you, Change of Keys. You didn't even write a message there. Thank you for the massive super chat. Appreciate that. That's not necessary. That was a $100 super chat. Thank you. Last show. And then, of course, 20 Prosperity 12. Same thing. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. God bless you, Adam, Dex, and Mods. With all the Foogle fam, stay safe, prepared, and stay alert. Head on a swivel. Thank you, 20 Prosperity 12. I appreciate you. Thank you for being the big supporter today. I appreciate that. Open Truth Ministry. I bought the 4-week emergency food supply through your channel, and let me just say, this is like 12 weeks of food. This is going to last. Those are great. And again, the Mylar bags and the freeze-dried food, I highly recommend, though, also do do-it-yourself videos and make your own food as well. There are things that you can do without a freeze dryer. But yeah, that is really good to just have it done and to be able to say, I've got this and it's stored away. So thank you for doing that through us, Open Truth Ministry. I appreciate that. And then Kevin C. Buddha's dead. Gandhi is dead. Muhammad is dead. Joseph Smith is dead. Zora Oster is dead. Krishna is dead. Dalai Lama is dead. But Jesus is alive. Kevin C., thank you for the support, and I appreciate the comment. And you are technically correct on that. Let's see here. And then we have the next... go ahead, Dex.
Hey, one real quick comment back to SK for those of you that just sometimes maybe think that it's not important to wonder what's going to happen between those two. Don't forget, we support SK with military, and we have over 28,000 troops there. So if something does go down, it's our servicemen and women that are over there, standing side by side with them, that are in the line of fire, so to speak. So 28,000.
And we've invested in top secret AI technology that is going on. There's the robots that they're working on there with our U.S. military. There was meetings that were leaked that shouldn't have come out between our people and South Koreans. So they're doing some massive projects there. So I would be aware of that, and I'm sure NK's got some sort of information about that. I'm sure of it. They've been spying on South Korea and vice versa for a long time. And then with record military incursions, China warns Taiwan and the U.S. China sent a record number of military aircraft to menace self-ruled Taiwan in a large show of force to the Xi administration, signaling that Beijing wants to maintain pressure on Taiwan even as some tensions between the superpowers are easing. It says a swarm of Chinese fighter jets, maritime patrol planes, and drones that buzzed the airspace near Taiwan in the 24-hour period leading to Monday morning demonstrated Beijing's appetite for confrontation with the United States over Taiwan, the island democracy China claims as its territory. The military activity, which according to Taiwan included at least 71 aircraft, came days after President Xi's latest move to expand American support for the island. Beijing has denounced the United States' effort as an attempt to contain China and interfere in its domestic affairs. So they're essentially saying that this is to, put China in a box and to keep them from advancing. It says that tensions over Taiwan have been rising in the months since House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the island in August, prompting Beijing to step up its activity in the area. Again, it says prompting, but that was their excuse. Several days of live-fire drills. China said that the exercise was aimed at honing its ability to conduct joint patrols and military strikes, but also made clear what the target was. This was a firm response to the current escalation and collusion and provocations by the U.S. and Taiwan. Now, pointing out the past, something that people should not forget is how their country looks at this, how their ganda was put out into their country, across the entire country, their global news, their Shenwen Daily, their People's Daily, all of their mouthpieces put out a piece and then replicated it, kind of like how the AP is, there'll be many media units that will take a story and then basically paste it on theirs. Across the country, they were told an op-ed that was hand-approved by the leader, by Xi, that told all of China's citizens that take this stuff as gospel that the U.S. made made all of the stuff that put them into lockdown. The reason why they were putting that white paper in the sky is because they were locked down because of an event that we made and that we put onto their country and that we attacked them. And it was basically a T attack, and that they needed to get ready for war. In that same piece, they said that we need to defeminize our community and our culture. They ended up making huge sweeping changes to how TV is, to video games, to everything. They basically are prepping their country for a war, a massive one. They also said that this is in August of 2020, or I want to say it was December of 2020, a year after the whole thing went down. When that piece came out, they put it all across. So the people that took it as gospel, they essentially believe we are their mortal enemy and that we need to be wiped off the planet, that we're just horrible in general. So I know that the U.S. has their ganda about Xi and everything else, but they don't touch. If you read that whole piece, when we have that archived on our website, it's pretty scary, because especially if it's coming out through the Global Times, Shenwen, People's Daily, the older generation that consume that's their thoughts. They're basically trained to believe whatever they read in those papers. It says the military policy bill that President Xi signed into legislation on Friday lays out lawmakers' national security priorities for the coming year. This year, U.S. lawmakers eyeing the protracted conflict in Europe and rising tensions with China approved funding for UKR and authorized up to $10 billion over the next 5 years for Taiwan. Such a large-scale action is, of course, a response to President B's signing of the act, said Su Zhu-yun, a security analyst at the Institute for National Defense and Security Research in Taipei. This pattern will likely continue. It says the United States has walked from strategic ambiguity to constructive clarity, basically saying that they have shown their true colors and they're coming out and they're supporting, and they're not supporting the one China policy, whatever else. Dex, what do you think about as far as they're obviously putting money towards it? They have said many times, even the president has said twice, that we'll militarily support. And then right after those speeches, both of them, the White House has then retracted it and walked it back and said, well, we meant this, and we actually meant we're for the one China policy. And so this is kind of, I guess it contradicts everything that we've been saying.
Well, it certainly does. And it's, it's really confusing when you listen to what our administration does, when you try to compare what their past experiences with Xi look like. And then you contrast that with the actions that are taken, the words that are said, the walkbacks that are happened. It's kind of difficult to really understand how our current administration is going to react to this, because they keep saying two different things. They appear to have really, really good relationships, especially financial relationships, with Xi and other parts prior to leading our country. There just seems to be lots of things that that when you look at it, you really can't get a clear picture and understand what's going to happen. We certainly, from our military point of view, if you take the administration and you just sort of set that to the side and look at what the military said, the military spends a lot of their time talking about how they need to, deal with Xi, deal with the growth of their military and what they're doing. So it seems to me that on the military side, they want to. Now, I mind you, the military's in business to grow and to be strong and to lead across the world and to have the best equipment, and so they're always going to take that position. If anybody looks stronger than them, then they're going to show that as a sign of weakness, and they want to be bigger. So I get that, but at the same time, when you look at the way leadership is set up and you look at what they're saying, it is very confusing. So I would be kind of shocked about what the actual response will be when it is sort of quote unquote go time.
And as we know, Taiwan officials have done a lot to prepare their people. There was rumors in the Fugel fam and abroad on Twitter saying that they not only have basically pumped up the leaflet handouts. There are these leaflets that basically tell them what to do in the case of conflict. But now they're officially telling different hospitals and things to make sure to check their backup powers, their generators, to do specific checks on all of the things if they lose power. They are telling the power workers, the people that are, fix their grid, to watch anything suspicious. They're basically preparing for any kind of event after these 70 planes ended up going and crossing over. They are also telling locals there that they need to be ready for anything. So to essentially telling them even how to defend themselves, things like this. They also, we talked about previously how they have passed different laws, and they're asking their lawmakers about how they can put mines out in the waters, between them and China. There's a lot of preparing being done. So whenever this is going to go down, my opinion is that it would go down during the conflict with Russia, because they believe they can win a full-fledged conflict if the U.S., which is trying to, help both, is split up in between. UKR conflict drone attack on Russian bomber base leaves 3 perished. So you've probably heard some of my peers already talking about this. Essentially, a lot of them are calling it a nuclear base, because it has a certain type of nuclear bombers. It's kind of like Engels houses their nuclear bombers, kind of like our Whitman houses our B-2s. This was then hit with drones. They said that they shot the drones down, but the drone ended up, the debris fell and hit 3 people. So sounds kind of sus on that note. It says that the UKR drone attack on Engels bomber base, and this is not the first time, this is the second attack now, has left 3 people perished. Air defenses reportedly shot down the drone, but falling debris caused the casualties in the overnight attack. Russia accuses UKR of carrying out a similar attack on the airfield home to strategic bombers on the 5th of December. The base lies about 310 to 400 miles northeast of the border with UKR. The UKR military has not officially commented on those attacks. Russia's defense ministry says its air defenses shot down the UKR drone, flying at low altitude at about 1:35 a.m. On Monday. Again, they basically waited. They were like, we'll hit midnight right after Christmas. Boom, we're going to attack you again. I'm not going to claim like I know exactly what party did this or who or UKR or anybody, but that is inside Russia's border, and these are now offensive attacks happening now, it seems like almost on a regular basis. Go ahead, Dex.
Yeah, and as you said, that's for their nuclear capable craft. Specifically, it's the Tu-160 that is only based. Its operations are at that base. So, and that is their long range strategic boomer, so to speak, which can carry regular munitions, but also is the one that will carry nuclear.
So it's a very important base. It's I would say on the same level as our Whitman base, which. Again, Whitman just had this whole thing about a week ago. It makes you think about what is actually happening that the public doesn't know about. Whitman grounded all of our B-2 bombers just like a week ago. And then you have attacks on Engels base again. Was the B-2 thing a response somehow from Russia or a sabotage on the B-2s that we don't hear about in the public? They give us some sort of reason why it happened. Was that something that happened as a tit for tat for the December 5th attack? So then now another attack on their base. Are we going to see our Whitman base get hit as well? I'll say it just one more time. There was the Chinese amphibious assault carrier that caught fire for 5 days, and it was very strange. Even their own people said this is a very strange event. It was in dry dock. It was on the dock, caught fire for 5 days. That was a very specific type of ship. It was an amphibious assault carrier. So not only is it a carrier for helicopters and attack planes or whatever, it also has this big open back end that can drop boats out and drop sea craft out of, right? Just a couple months later, you have a U.S. amphibious assault carrier, the same kind of boat that drops boats out the back in dry dock, catch fire for 4 or 5 days. Almost like, well, you did it to us, so we're doing it to you. But then we're like, oh, well, no, they didn't do it. It was some kid. Well, that kid that got arrested for doing it got cleared of all charges, but they waited a few months out when nobody was following that story to say, oh, yeah, there was no evidence against this kid, so if he didn't do it, then who did? I think it's pretty common sense, as obvious as it gets. If you see something like that, they're supposed to go along the lines of basically an equal attack, right? If we do an EMP, they do an EMP. If they do a nuke, we do a nuke. But if they do something small, you don't just respond with a nuke, you respond in kind. So our B-2s, December 5th, we hit their nuclear capable base. All of a sudden, our B-2 base is grounded for some reason. And then about a week later, again, their same base is then hit. Are these tit for tats? And can we predict that something is going to happen to our B-2s or our B-21s in the next couple weeks as a tit for tat? If it happens, we'll see. But again, it's usually in kind, and as the public knows, they'll just make up some excuse and tell us it's some BS, cover story. Large-scale fire in Novosibirsk. It says that a large fire has broken out in warehouses in the Russian city of Novosibirsk. It says a fire covered an estimated 1,800 square meters, and witnesses reported explosions. It said that Russian local outlets report that a 2-story warehouse building made of sandwich panels and at 2nd Stationary Street 30 is on fire. The warehouse is completely engulfed in flames, the structure collapsed, and there is a threat to neighboring buildings. Now, I just want to point out, we have had many food factories and all sorts of other fires that have been happening for, this whole time during this conflict and even before. It makes you wonder how many of these are actual spies or James Bonds going in and doing it as a response to something that we don't even know has happened. It makes you wonder. And I bet you that happens all the time, and the public just doesn't know what's happening. According to Russia's Ministry of Emergency, the fire is being put out by more than 70 people and 20 units of equipment. Just to let you know, the same way that if a major nation actor has a spy go in and damage something or sabotage something here, the U.S. government and the media is not going to tell you, oh, Russia did this. That would scare the crap out of people, and it would fuel more, craziness. The same thing there. They're not going to tell the Russian people that the U.S. government sent in a spy and lit a mall on fire or something, because nobody's going to take responsibility. It's done in secret. But I bet you they would know who did it, or they would have their suspicions, or they have some sort of satellite technology that sees somebody and then identifies them as a U.S. spy or a James Bond or a whatever, MI6 or a FBI or CIA. This kind of stuff goes on all the time. And the movies, they may be an exaggeration with their explosions, but half of the plots of these movies, they happen in real life. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about this spat of boom booms? This is pretty controversial as far as like what the claims are here, but I don't think anybody really is too surprised or baffled by these claims.
This is a very big claim. It's coming from a U.S. veteran, and he's making the claim that a three-letter agency in our world that falls into that spy category, along with other NATO allies, are behind a lot of these sabotage type events that you're seeing, or these events that we're seeing happen in Vlad's country, maybe like the one we just talked about, right? So the fact that there's this claim, and it could just be a complete, out of left field claim, but it's also not out of left field when you think about the investment that our countries, whether you're an allied country with the U.S. or if you're, on the other side, so to speak, they invest heavily in this type of espionage, whether it be straight up spying for information or creating events or making things happen, so to speak, or even taking things out, so to speak, whether those be places or people. So we have a huge investment in that. So it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility to think that there's not any involvement whatsoever across enemy lines, so to speak. And I would expect that they're probably the same across our lines from Vlad's country, or even Xi's country for that matter. We actually report on some of that stuff when it's happened, when we've seen it, especially the espionage kind of thing. So the claim here is pretty big, it's pretty bold, but at the same time, it's not like out in left field where you go, that's just crazy. It's actually could make sense, because this is the kind of stuff that goes on during conflict. This is the kind of stuff that goes on between adversaries. But the claim being very specific about some of these locations that are being hit, whether it be a civilian location versus a military location, those are there are unfortunate consequences of some of this stuff, and you don't want to necessarily think that that's the way it's playing out, but you just never know.
Who was that? Joseph McKenzie says the biggest threat to America is America. I want to take a quick second to say I want to give my condolences to North Shore Preparedness. I just found out before the show that they had passed, and I wanted to quickly, Dex, can we pull up a link with his channel and show it if people want to go and say something nice? I'm sure the family will be monitoring that. We never got to directly work with North Shore Preparedness, but he was very. A lot of Foogle family members were very close. Let's see here, and it's very saddening to. It's very saddening to hear about anybody passing. We've actually had quite a few people pass in the last few months, so I just wanted to say today's show is dedicated to North Shore preparedness, and I am sending my prayers to the family, and I really do. We keep losing so many people, and it's really hard for everybody to lose somebody that is in this community, because it is a tight-knit community. Even though it's a huge group of prepper communities across YouTube, it really is tight-knit, and everybody is kind of involved in everybody else's channel, and everybody kind of bounces around and gets to know everybody, and it's really quite sad when we lose anybody. Let's see here. Thank you, Dex. Let's see.
We also have that on our website.
Yeah. So, is it in overflow yet, or was it? I know that we put
it is now. It was earlier.
And he had he really had, he was getting somewhere too. He was nearly on 10,000 subscribers. And it's very, very sad to hear. So I'm just a moment of silence for North Shore preparedness. All right. Well, thank you, and thank everybody that's everybody that is saying prayers for the family. Rest in peace, Tracy Q. Belinda Brubaker says there's so many passing over. There's so many people that are dealing with battles that most you don't even know about. Sparky's Run says Sean always was so welcoming and such a hospitality at his home live streams. Tony Almeida said, rest in peace. How old was he? What did he perish of? I did not get that far. I found out right before the show started. And Frank, what is that? Forbidden Knowledge says, super weird, but I was unsubscribed and resubscribed. That's not strange at all. That happens all the time. May his soul rest in peace, says Tommy Tier. Yeah, his name was Sean, but people knew him as North Shore Preparedness. Again, it's pretty. It is a really tight knit community, and everybody knows everybody. Everybody bounces from channel to channel, and yeah, I'm just praying for the family. That is the hardest part about perishing. I think about too if when I pass, I don't know if many of you are like me, but we think less. We're less afraid of dying and more afraid of how it's going to affect everybody around us. Like, I think about my kids. I think about how painful it is when I've lost people that are close and how much I needed them. And of course, then you think about how it affects people, how it affects children specifically too. Doesn't matter what age, when they lose their parents or when they lose somebody close, it can change their life path. I mean, just think about how many, I'm sure some of you have lost your parents. I lost both my parents very early. And I think, like, where would have my life been if they would have been there until I was 18? You know what I mean? If I would have been there, I wouldn't be the same. So death is only the door, but again, everything is done for a purpose. Like, maybe I would have been somewhere bad, maybe I would have been, our struggles and the people that have passed around us probably also make us who we are. And it's probably, it's kind of the school of hard knocks. So very, much prayers for Sean, and I hope he is up in heaven right now watching the show. All right. And then Putin's nuclear threats are stirring fears of a nightmare scenario. Here's what's in his arsenal and what could happen if he orders the unthinkable. It says Russian President Vladimir Putin has made lots of very unsettling nuclear threats since the start of Russia's unprovoked conflict in UKR. And they always say unprovoked. Just realize, and you don't have to have Russia's side to realize that that's programming. I mean, having all of, basically putting more NATO on their borders is kind of a provocation. Some of the things that happen yes, you could call it unprovoked, but also to put that into every kind of article and to put Mad Vlad and to put a bias into these things, it's not, I guess that's debatable, right? From different perspectives, from two different perspectives, that's debatable. Was it provoked or unprovoked? I guess we don't know exactly what the truth is on that. So that's kind of a biased statement. News should be unbiased, right? But if you put like crazy Vlad before something, you're saying before you even start the article that he's insane, right? And that is something that is a biased comment. Whereas somebody would probably write that in Russia as glorious Vlad or something like that. That's also bias. That's saying wonderful Vlad. I see it in every article. It doesn't matter what it's about. There's always some sort of bias programming inside of it. So you have to, once you take the red pill, it's kind of hard not to see it. And then it says that, and concerns are growing as his forces lose ground, that he could resort to the unthinkable and order the use of weapons of mass destruction, a nightmare scenario. Now, many of us in our lifetime have been through so many of these scenarios that we're desensitized to weapons of mass destruction, to the Cold War, to all of these things where, in the end, nothing ended up happening for us as civilians. Now, there was a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. In fact, quite a few of you were saying that just a minute ago, saying there's a lot of things that we don't know about. There's close calls that we will never, ever, ever know about. But again, that's something that we don't end up seeing. It says in September, Putin made a veiled reference to nuclear weapons while vowing to defend Vlad's territorial integrity, emphasizing that this is not a bluff. Putin has continued to make threatening references to Russia's nuclear arsenal in the time since. It says the use of a tactical nuke would be a deliberate act made in cold blood, an expert said, that requires a multi-step process that U.S. spy agencies may detect. So far, U.S. officials have said that they have seen no signs of it. Russia has the world's largest arsenal of tactical nukes, weapons that whose battlefield impact may be limited to destroying a dozen armored vehicle, but could still take the lives of tens of thousands if used against a city. Unlike ICBMs, whose explosive power is often measured in megatons, tactical nukes are not emergency use weapons ready to be fired at a moment's notice. Arms control experts said they are aging weapons of questionable reliability that must be taken out of storage and shipped to a frontline unit for use. Now, I want to point out that last point. They said that these are not something that are always ready to be used because of their nature. They are stored and then they have to be taken out. There has been rumors that they have been taking out stuff, and then there's also been confirmations that they've been taking these tactical nukes and loading them up, and regular nukes and loading them up. That's why it's kind of a big deal last week when they said, they've got a nuke pointed towards London, a nuke towards U.S., all this. But I want to go back to Rip Curl Readiness, and I don't know if he's here tonight, but I want to go back to his call and the pictures that he got and that we showed here on the show. Dex, we ended up showing that our side has pulled out what we believe are tactical nukes and these nukes, and we have these things, and we're pulling them out of our storages, loading them up on trucks, and moving them around. What do you think is do you remember that?
That's what Rip was showing, and we weren't sure if that was training or if that was the real deal, but that's exactly what it looked like, and it would look like when what he was proposing and supposing in those images that he found. We certainly roll our stuff all the time, and we've certainly got them sitting in subs We have no idea where the locations are, except for when they occasionally surface to sort of remind our adversaries that they're there. But those are ready to roll and are probably more than likely sitting right off the coasts of our adversaries as we speak.
And we, of course, have that. We have the capability as well. The pictures and the things that we showed were sent in by Rip Curl Readiness. When you see those pictures, hopefully that is a drill, because they were pulling out of basically what looked like what a bomb shelter looks like. They were pulling them out, putting them on a truck, and they are so sensitive. They have them in special cases, and there were only 6 to a huge 40-yard long truck bed. And then they chain them down in a very specific way. Imagine that thing going down the highway with 6 tactical or regular nuke warheads. I'm sure they covered it. In fact, it showed a picture of it even covered and uncovered. Before we move on, I want to point out, if you do go over to marfooglenews.com/prep, you can get a discount. In fact, the biggest discount ever. And again, there's $200 off the 3-month and $70 off on the 1-month supply. The 4-week supply, again, is what we had somebody just mention earlier, said that they felt like it was a 12-week supply. Again, they're pretty good at estimating what that would last, and that's for one person. So if you did want to get over a month of food for 2 people, the 3-month supply, that could be split up to a month and a half or 6 weeks for 2 people. That is now the biggest discount. When you buy more, you end up saving more as well, and it almost makes it worth it. It's just a little bit more, but you get a whole lot more. You get 2 months more of food. When you go through any of our affiliates, these are ads, because we are doing these affiliates to basically support ourselves. We are covering controversial topics, and even though we filter ourselves, basically we are almost never suitable for all advertisers. So we appreciate your support. It helps us pay our bills and helps put food on our tables, so we appreciate it. But on top of this, we've already been thanked by dozens and dozens of people for different things that we have gone over the past. I still get thank you notes for grounding, which grounding isn't really around much. They kind of changed their model, but people that ended up going through a grounding affiliate, they still use the grounding mats, and they still thank us for it. As far as the prep food, this has come in handy for many Foogle fam members just in regular storms. In Florida, they had floods throughout that hurricane. People had food throughout that. As far as having extra food, again, it's something that really can't be beat. If you have food in your house in an emergency, and say the local store had a tornado go through it, it's pretty awesome to say that you have food ready to go. Just add water, and then boom, you're good. These are freeze-dried foods packed into Mylar bags, and they can last 25 plus years. So if you buy this now and say freeze-dried foods triples like it did in the last 3 years, in 3 years from now, you wouldn't pay 3 times the price. You would have your supply, and you would still have 22 years left on the shelf. So make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/prep. And they also have all sorts of other things. If you go to the top tab, you can go to other items, like if you're concerned at all about radiation poisoning, you can go over. They have the iodine tablets. They also have the Alexa Pure Pro, which is a water filtration gravity-fed system. Very, 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 very fast and really, really efficient system. That is there as well. And then, of course, they have the Alexa Pure Air purifiers. And, of course, books, all sorts of great stuff. So make sure to go check that out. marfooglenews.com/prep. When you use that link, you will not only get a discount, but you will be helping our channel as well. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about Putin? And another Putin critic falls out a window.
Yeah, we get these all the time, it seems like, whether they're close cronies of his that are mysteriously being offed, or in this case, a critic that was close to him is mysteriously perished after falling from a luxury hotel in India. So the sausage multimillionaire Pavel Antov, I think he made a statement when the invasion first started, or it was probably back in June, so it wasn't when it first started. He was basically making comments that he didn't think that what was happening in Kiev and what his country was doing was the right thing to be doing. So he was basically labeled as someone who was against Putin. Now he is mysteriously perished, and the mystery part is falling from a luxury hotel. So we all know what likely happened here. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We never will, but we certainly will guess.
And big shout out to JW TV is in the chat. If you guys haven't checked out JW's channel as well, he is awesome guy. Thank you, JW, for popping in. I don't know how long you've been here, but made sure to shout you out. JW has some really, really good videos on his channel. Make sure to go check him out as well. I wonder what you think about what is going on right now. It's pretty crazy stuff. Another one bites the dust. We just talked about JW. I don't know if you heard that, but North Shore preparedness just passed. I just found out about it before the show from the mods, and again, thanks to the mods for keeping it an awesome place down here. Meanwhile, that's actually a good reminder. Make sure to go over to Friends of Marfoogle. Make sure to go marfooglenews.com/friends. Not only can you find all of the mods channels like Rip Curl Readiness, who I just mentioned, who gave us those pictures, but you'll also find you have a great selection of creators that we have dealt with in the past, that we vouch for. And of course, the website is just taken forever to load. There we go. But yes, lots of great people on there. And make sure to go check out great creators like Justin True, Jeff P., Alaska Prepper, All Day Everyday Preparedness, Ilea, great channel, RGL Harris, of course, Bones, Wages World, always great job covering all of the solar events. So make sure to go check them out. And then let's see here. Yeah, basically if you critique Vlad, you fall out a window. How often does that happen? Oh, look at this. And this is what I've talked about so many times. Cancer-stricken Vladimir Putin only being kept alive by foreign doctors as the end already in sight for tyrant. And look at this. Sickly Vlad says tyrannical leader is reportedly suffered from a myriad of health issues. Parkinson's, and they literally have a dot on his head. Stomach cancer, bloating, purple hands. I don't know if this is true, but I don't know. I don't know if it's... They showed him like skipping around the other day. Purple hands. That could be a white balance issue. It very well could be just old age. I don't know, though. Purple hands, is that a sign of going through treatments? You would think that if he does have something, that he would have either the cure for it or the best treatments in the world. And the thing is this is pointing out, if he really is perishing, that's not a good thing for the world, because if he does have his finger on a nuclear button, if he feels like he's not going to be here tomorrow, that's not exactly good either, because if you're on your last straw, definitely don't want to push those. It says rumors have persisted that the 70-year-old tyrant is critically ill, and according to Valerie Solove, he is being kept alive with advanced treatments. Well, will he be kept alive for a long time? JWTV says, I think he will survive. I think it's a CIA psyop. I think it's Dale Val Poopaganda. I think it is. Putin-ganda. I agree with you. I've heard Putin is sick for a year now. Well, we've been covering it for a year since they showed him in a blanket, almost like what's his face? They showed a picture that was a lot like the Bernie Sanders picture of Bernie Sanders with a blanket over his lap with gloves, all cuddled up. Yeah, they've been saying that. LMAO, fake news, says Blonderella. Well, that's why I like to point out, they always say sickly Vlad or mad Vlad or this or that. And they've even said, we covered about 6 months ago, they said that he has a full-time staff member that goes in the bathroom after he goes in. He does not flush. They actually collect what he drops in the toilet and they bring it back to Russia. So if he's in another country, there's a guy that literally collects his stool and then brings it back with them. And they're saying that that's a sign that, because he doesn't want anybody to go in after him, grab it, and test it and say, he's got cancer or he's got this or he's got that. That's not a joke. We shared that. That was through I think that was Associated Press that put out that piece, and it was a claim by someone close. You know, they always put from someone familiar with the stool matter or something like that. And then Dex, do you want to cover this next one as far as it's just not loading for me.
Okay, so yeah, they're loading fine here. This is the Xi and Putin meeting. They're supposed to be conferring or conferencing, I guess is how I would say it, this week or before the end of the year. So there's a lot of talk going on about their relationship. We've seen different things that have happened with statements coming out of Xi. We've seen some strange positions where he's, potentially said, you have to give me in written response when you're planning to end the UKR conflict. But we don't know how much of that is actually true because it's coming out secondhand through different people that say they have inside information. But all these weird things have come up. But we do know that they have met frequently. They met right before the conflict. They met during it. And they plan to meet again. And I expect that this is not just a friendly meeting of like a coincidence. This is probably along the lines of what are they planning? What support are they going to provide each other? What stage are they in this conflict? What do they expect to do next? And what level of support are they going to give each other? Obviously, when they went into this early on, Vlad needed a whole lot of financial support because he was being sanctioned, and Xi stepped in along with a couple other countries and specifically India and, bought oil and did other things to make sure that they continued to have resources and funding while the rest of the world was trying to shut them off. So I expect that we won't hear exactly what the outcome of this, but my expectation is that they are having a conversation specifically about what's going on with this conflict and maybe what's going to go next. What is the next step? Maybe they're going to talk about Taiwan. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're going to talk about, what their positioning is going to be against the West and how they're going to take it and what's going to happen next.
I believe that it's most likely something bigger is going to happen right after this meeting. We'll see what happens. Also, I want to point out through the past again, that they had some weird contingency plan that Vlad had that leaked, which was called Noah's Ark, or it was dubbed Noah's Ark. What the mainstream media after that leaked said that it was his contingency plan for when he loses the conflict, he will retreat with his family and friends to some mountain and basically hide away so he doesn't get taken out after he loses the UKR conflict. Something about me does not believe that, and that was just a few days after Elon Musk shared the Space Ark, the meme, basically showing them loading 2 of every animal up into a Space Ark 1968 painting with men with bang bangs basically holding the population back while they're loading animals onto this Space Ark. That would actually be a lot like the movie 2012. That movie, in the end, they talk about spaceships the whole time, and in the end you find out that they're not spaceships, they're actually boats for the massive flood that happens on Earth, right? That one was based on the whole Mayan prediction. I didn't realize. I thought that movie came out closer in 2012, but that movie actually came out in 2009. It's so crazy that was already more than 10 years ago. That was like 13 years ago when that movie came out. I remember the hype around that movie and thinking about, before the Mayan prophecy ended up being wrong, that when 2012 came along, everybody was like really freaked out. I knew plenty of people that were basically prepping for the end of the world on that. And then afterwards, they actually said that the math may have been wrong. And what was it, a couple years ago, that was the real 2012, or there was some math equation wrong. Isn't there some rumor that the math was done wrong and it's actually, we haven't gotten there yet, or that it's like 2024 or 2025? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments down below. And then the Nord Stream pipeline, the mystery Baltic seabed provides nearly an ideal crime scene. Dex, I touched on this on the Marfoogle News short. Do you want to give your take on this?
This is exactly the most ideal place to pull off this. Now, I have an opinion, and I'll give it to you in just a minute, but let me give you the gist of what they're saying. There is so much underwater cable running through here, like a lattice work of cable and fiber optics that are going back and forth. There's pipes, there's other things, and then this pipeline that's been built for a long time. And all of these countries that use this Baltic area in the Baltic seabed, they all have the capability to dive, whether it be a diver going down and creating and setting up something for sabotage, or being a small submersible submarine, basically a vehicle doing it, or even dropping something from a boat and doing it and letting it go down and then cause the damage. And all of the ships that are in there have the ability to turn off their tracking system so they can't be seen. So it's basically the ideal, as they called it, the ideal crime scene, because you can pretty much get away with it because nobody will ever know unless they actually have the evidence seeing you there. Now, there has been an investigation, and there were investigations from non-NATO countries that went in and looked. They collected samples. They were able to determine that it was sabotage. They were able to determine it was explosive, and they probably have material from that explains it. What we don't know is anything else. They haven't come out and told us anything else, and that's why they call it the big mystery. But my opinion, and this is my opinion is if it was obviously clear that it was Vlad, everyone would be saying it, and it would be the hugest bit of news since the day it happened, and they would still be talking about it today. The fact that it's not, and they haven't necessarily gone back to it, leads me to believe that some of the stuff they pulled up probably didn't make a really crystal clear picture for who they wanted it to be. And it probably left it pretty murky that it could have been someone else. And since they couldn't pull it off the way they wanted to, they're probably going to just leave it a mystery, as opposed to try to run that gamut that they thought they were going to have there. That's just my opinion, because good and well, we've seen how this has worked in prior conflicts. When they've got even evidence that they know isn't evidence, they still run it, before this committee and that committee, and it's all over the place. And it's, look at the smoke and bang bang here. We found this satellite image that shows us X, Y, and Z, and that's the WMD, and we've got them right. And but none of that's happened. None of it's happened. It's all been sort of swept back under the rug.
And it will continue to be swept under the rug. Able-bodied, by the way, thank you for pointing out that stuff. We also block cuss words because people watch with their families, and I want my show to be able to watch for younger generations if they do end up tuning in or they end up watching it with their parents. We've had families call in and say that there's young kids that are now currently in this generation of the brainwashed, etc., that are actually, following all of this stuff, and it is a good thing. Instead of being trained by TikTok to, go with this whole, new don't say anything unless everybody approves of it thing. Not to mention, if I'm at a public appearance or something, if I stub my toe, I cuss, but I don't just cuss to cuss. I mean, if I'm in public place, there's no reason for it. If you can find a word that communicates the same thing, then what's the point? But I'm a human being. I cuss when I stub my toe. I cuss. I'm not perfect. What's funny is many people have pointed out, the big crime of me was that they were pointing out that I was less than perfect. Basically, they used their judgments, or they judged me as a book, and they judged me by my cover. And because I don't swear and I set a reasonable example, then if they find out, oh, I heard him cuss. Oh, he's this and that. Well, yeah, because I'm human. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to set that example in public. I'm going to try to set as good of an example as I can. and I try to practice what I preach. I don't always do perfect, but I'm not perfect. I'm, I guess people kind of, they make their judgments, and then if you're less than what they think you are, that's on them, not on me. I'm me. I can't not be me. I've been on here for 5 years. Most of you guys know me for me. You know my sense of humor. You know pretty much everything about me. Over the last 5 years, I've pretty much told everybody my life story. So I appreciate those that, like, I mean, it was like a real crime that, like, oh, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But we do try to keep it positive, and one of our main rules in the chat is we don't put people down, we don't put other creators down, and we don't talk badly about the callers. When we have our call-in shows, it's just rude. It's like if you were at a party and you're sitting at a preset table with 6 people and there's 50 tables. If somebody's at your table, they go up and they speak, you're not going to boo them and then have them come sit back next to you at dinner. That would just be awkward. Why do that here? You know what I mean? You suck! And then after their speech, they come back and eat their dinner with you. Who would do that in real life? Nobody. So don't do it in the chat. Not to mention, there's a million reasons why people could have different life stories. You don't know the battle that somebody else next to you is going through. You don't know how much loss they've gone through. You don't know how many hard times they've gone through. You don't know if they could be homeless, living in their car. Specifically, I'll just mention it because I haven't mentioned it in a while. When we had call-in, there was a person who spoke, and they spoke kind of slowly, and they didn't speak too properly. While people kept saying, oh, this person's drunk, hang up, next. We don't allow that in our chat for this exact reason. It turns out that person then watched the replay, watched the chat, and that person had a stroke, and that's why they had a problem speaking. So imagine that person that had something happen that they had no control over. They had a stroke. Now half their face is paralyzed, and they're trying to talk. They have the courage to call in, and then some jack sits here and basically tells them that they're drunk and whatever else. That's horrible. It was just, I think a lot of people, when they heard that person call in again and tell us that, a lot of people have kind of switched their ways. Not to mention, if you call in, you would expect the people to treat you like you would like to be treated. And then before we move on, I do want to point out, if you haven't already, you can protect yourself against EMP. Go to marfugglenews.com/EMP to get yourself a device that can actually ground the signal from an EMP or a CME, a coronal mass ejection, or an electromagnetic pulse, and protect your car, your truck, your generators, your house, and pretty much anything you want to keep running. EMP Shield makes a device for. Go to marfugglenews.com/EMP. It will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your engines, your motors, your generators, and such others. And you're supporting a veteran-owned business, a 100% American-made product, and you're supporting our show. And not to mention, you're getting the same protection that agencies like DOD and the DEMSO team and the DHS are using to protect themselves. Nobody's going to basically come and protect you. Nobody is going to set up your house so you can get through it. You've got to do it yourself. And if you do, again, the EMP Shield for the car is their most popular. That can be put in less than 10 minutes. And now they even have the micro version. The micro version is literally this big. Tiny. Easy to put in. And you'll be protected, and you might survive something that otherwise you might not have. marfugglenews.com/EMP. And then Putin says Russia ready to negotiate over UKR. Sounds like Gunda, but who knows? Dex, why don't you go over this one? Do you think he's ready to hand over and put up the white flag?
In my opinion, this is lip service. I think he's certainly making this statement because of all of the position of the way everything's going right now, at least in the front, that he's coming out and saying, hey, I'm willing to solve this. But I think when it comes down to what is it he wants, what are his demands, I don't know that they're going to actually come to an agreement. It's sort of like what Zelensky was saying, is like when he first started saying, well, I'll negotiate, but only if he's gone, only if, he's taken out, or he's no longer in charge, or he's left the country. He has to be in exile or something like that. So there are going to be these sticking points to the negotiation that probably aren't going to work. And I think they're just playing lip service or some form of Ganda on this. But we'll see. But I think this is probably also a position to be taken, especially as he's going into his meeting with Xi. And there's probably something along the lines with this. But I really don't think he's going to give up. I don't think he's going home. I don't think he's packing up and saying, I'm done here. He had specific goals he set out, and I don't think that he's in a position to want to give up on any of that. He may be willing to negotiate, but I'm almost certain that he's going to negotiate from a position of making sure he's getting what he wants out of the deal. And I don't think that the other side is going to accept it at all.
Yeah, and any time in the past they have said that they're willing to negotiate, their terms are so insane that nobody would take them. UKR said something in the beginning that was just like the terms were so crazy that no one ever expected it to be taken seriously. And then but what's crazy is on Vlad's side, in the beginning, he said just basically don't let UKR join NATO and this whole thing will go away or something. Who knows to believe that? He could have still planned to do whatever he was doing. But there was information that leaked out from our side that said that they were planning on getting them somehow into NATO before he even put 160,000 troops on there a year before, the first time when he practiced this. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, and I just want to add, I also think from a positioning standpoint, he is, by coming out and making this statement, he is trying to make himself look like the good guy and painting the picture that the West won't negotiate. In other words, the West only is the ones that want to have the conflict. I don't. They're the ones that want it. I'm willing to negotiate, but they're not. Now, the West is going to sit back and say, no, he's just bluffing. They're going to say what I just said, which is his demands are going to be ridiculous, and it's not going to be a negotiation. But I think that's really, it's a positioning point of view, not necessarily the fact that, oh, he's hurt, he's tucking tail and running home. That's not the case.
Yeah, and we'll see in the next couple of days. It will come out what the negotiation actually is, and now he's meeting with Xi. So even if he did say something, it could be a total cover for something to, calm things down right before something bad happens. At the same time, he's meeting with Xi. All of these other things are being said about China's side. It says that China's CV tsunami could spark a dangerous new variant that infects the world. Before I do that, though, pointing out, somebody said fake kindness is stomach turning, though, too. I agree with you, but at the same point, I basically do this show how I run my household with kids around. I try not to swear in front of my kids. I try not to swear in public. If I'm at a grocery store, I don't just say, hey, how you doing? F you and F you there. Oh, yeah, good effing day, brother. That's not me either. So I guess, also, you can swear and still be, people think it's like monetization or something. We're already covering things that are not suitable for all advertisers. So either way, we get a yellow. In fact, people are green that can say drop the F-bomb like 50 times. How I have learned about it is that you can say something so many times. Like you can say Russia, but if you say it like 50 times, then it basically categorizes the video. If you say the F-bomb, you'll see these, what do you call it? These streamers that are doing video games. They can swear, but they won't swear too much. Because once it goes over a certain level, then you get age restricted. If you get age restricted, then basically people can't share, they can't comment, they can't do anything. So that's what you really don't want to have. And if you swear too much, then that is what will happen. So that's something that's really bad. if you guys have ever seen, and you have to like click through, and it's not, you will never ever trend if it's that way either too. Not like we have ever, but it basically closes doors that you can't even open. And then the CV tsunami could spark a dangerous new variant that infects the world. Now, I want to point out the timing of this. 12 hours ago, or about 14 hours ago, What's Their Faces Redacted ended up putting out a video about these exercises that were going on. I just want to point out, we pointed these exercises out back in October and in early November, and nobody was talking about it. Now that Redacted has brought some more light on it, now people are pointing it out. But Rumble and other places have been talking about this for months. There's exercises going on, and let's see. Is it already on the website, Dex?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just pull it up.
Just refresh.
I'll just pull it up, and for like Heartbroken Survivor, I'm just wondering how I can communicate that to Heartbroken Survivor, because you don't want to say, you don't want to, this stuff is like, this is big stuff. Basically, the foundation and the W and the H and the O, they're putting together these drills and exercises for a catastrophic contagion. Those are the words you need to look up. And this is something we brought up after their tabletop exercise back in October. Okay, this is something we have already covered. So people this week, I guarantee, are going to be messaging like, why are you covering this? We covered this months ago before anybody was. Now we're covering it again because now it's getting attention and light. I told you guys, when they do these things, you need to pay attention. Because the last one that happened, the 2 and the O and the 1, that one basically painted an exact picture of what really happened. Now, I'm not saying that this will happen, but it's a lot of us are going, maybe we should get ready just in case it does. At the same time as this is getting attention now, you have, of course, this story. Basically, they dropped all the lockdowns. Now everything is open again, business as usual. It says the tsunami of CV that's taking hold across Xi's country is spurring concern that a dangerous new V variant could emerge for the first time in more than a year, just as genetic sequencing to catch such a threat is dwindling. The situation in Xi's country is unique because of the path it's followed throughout. Damn it. It says, while almost every other part of the world has battled infections and embraced the Vs with potent shots of varying degrees, Xi's country largely sidestepped both. And it says largely sidestepped. They just didn't do any of them. None. It says the result is a population with low levels of immunity. It says facing a wave of disease caused by the most contagious strain of the V yet to circulate. It says the expected surge of and perishings are taking hold in Xi's country within a black box since the government is no longer releasing detailed CV data. The spread has medical experts and political leaders in the U.S. and elsewhere worried about another round of disease caused by the mutating V. It says, meanwhile, the number of cases sequenced globally each month to find those changes has plunged. It said, quote, there will certainly be more sub-variants developing in Xi's country in the coming days, weeks, and months. But what the world must anticipate and organize in order to recognize it early and take rapid action is a completely new variant of concern. It says it could be more contagious, more deadly, and evade drugs, Vs, and detection from existing diagnostics. They're saying 2019 all over again, and they're warning of this. So please take the time now to prepare as if it was right before the 19 event when we told you about the last time they did these exact exercises, when they put out quietly that, hey, this is a possibility, this is this. And most people that took us up on this last time and didn't say, oh, it's just fear-mongering, They ended up getting extra supplies. And when all of the stores ran out, and what's so crazy is most people have experienced going to the store and seeing all of the shelves empty. You now in your life can say you went to the store and every shelf was empty. There was no toilet paper. There was no stupid, essentials, right? There was no Tylenol. There was no Aleve. There was none of these things that are essentials, right? The Foogle fam that paid attention, and our families, we had all of this stocked up. So we didn't care. We didn't need to go to the store because we had 50 bottles of Tylenol and 50 bottles of Aleve, and we had toilet paper up the yin-yang, literally. Now it's all happening again, and the same parties are involved. So pay attention, have extra stuff, and do it slowly. Obviously, if it's by the same time frame, you have at least some time. And I think we will see the first case, and we'll see if it happens again, we'll see the first case. Then it's going to hit down that same road, and we know what road that will come down. Only this time, people are it's already ingrained in us. I bet you people will quickly step right back in line, distanced, of course. I think it will be a little bit harder to do, but that's why when it comes to more, if you remember how people felt in the very beginning when there was videos of people just and doing all this crazy stuff, which ended up later on, we found out that, those videos weren't so real. Just remember how people felt. All you need to do is to convince the worst skeptic is just go to a whole new level of scary. And then even those people are like, well, I don't believe it, but I'm not going to take a chance at the same time. The same people that will be on Facebook saying, this is all some BS. They're secretly putting on, covering up, sanitizing their stuff. I've seen it. I've seen people do it. They criticize everybody else, but then you see them at the store in like a full hazmat suit. Specifically. I saw some crazy stuff, man. Over the time, did you guys, by the way, during that whole time period, did you actually see somebody in a full-on hazmat suit? I saw at least 4 or 5 in the worst part of that. Like full-on, like they bought it from Amazon. They went grocery store shopping looking like they were in the movie Contagion. Posted one of those. It was pretty nuts. Not to mention the whole... those doctor things with the plastic in front of it and the whole 9 yards. Now, some people I know during that whole Civ thing, like my friend Laura, she got a double lung transplant. So she had reason to actually protect herself from every kind of cold and common thing. But a lot of people that were perfectly healthy, they were completely, just scared crapless. And now they're telling us that there's this thing around the corner. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. I wouldn't sit there shaking in your boots, but I would set some stuff aside just in case the same thing happens and the movie Songbird ends up coming true. And even if it's not true, the enforcement will be. Dex, what would you like to add to that?
I just want to remind people that the time period that we're talking right now is the same time period we were talking before CV happened. It was end of December. We started talking about stuff in Xi's country. We were actually reporting on it in about mid-December. And by the end of the year, we were reporting on, all the things that were happening. And it's almost like it feels like deja vu. It feels like we're just repeating it again. I hope it doesn't come anything further, but at the same time, like you said, use this as another reason to be prepared. You don't have to go extreme. You just need to do the things you need to do to make sure that you can take care of yourself should, those types of events go down again. We've been there. Now that we've been there and done it, we know what we need. We know more what it could be like. So we can be better prepared. Some of us were already prepared and we sat back and said, wow, I'm glad I had all that extra stuff because I was able to go to my storage room and grab some TP when we ran out. I didn't have to worry about a line or trying to find any, so it just use this as that opportunity. One more reason for you to think about what you can do to make sure you can, take care of yourself because nobody's going to take care of you. but you.
I didn't see the name on that, but they said once Marf went to CV Ground Zero, I started preparing. So that was, and it's crazy the timeline we're talking about. Even the 2 and the 0 and the 1, that event, that happened in, I believe, in October or in September. It happened in that same time period. Then fast forward, there was this stuff going on in Xi's country, and in December, we were talking about it. In December, or early January, when it was still cold out, the first ever U.S. patient was here. Ground Zero was here, supposedly, right here in Washington. And the first patient, there was like some couple in Chicago, but the first ever person was here in Seattle, which again is a big SeaTac airport. All of the people came in here. And that was held at a hospital here in Bellevue. And I went to that hospital and I questioned nurses and I said, hey, they say that there's a room up there with robots and that they can't, people aren't even going in. And I could show you the footage of it. The nurses denied it even existed. And I guarantee you they were told, don't talk to press. Because I had a big old camera. I had a bigger one. Basically, I had a normal DSLR with like a huge attachment that looked like a news camera. And I walked up to him like this, and I said, hey, can I get a couple of questions answered so they don't know me from, King or Fox or whatever. And they said, oh, no, there's nothing like that here. Even though the nationwide news said that the first patient was up there with robots going in, not regular people. So it was nuts. But then people realized like they're making this into something way bigger than what we think. It was like a replay out of a movie, literally a movie. All right, let's see. Dex, let's go over the web only content. Thank you. I do want to say thank you real quick before we go to everybody over on D Live. I appreciate you. Thank you, Vicky K, Scooby Doo Do Right, Chance Paladin, Scooby. Thank you again, Beer Juice, Kevin C. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. We're going to be switching over to Marfoogle Jams here in just a second. And then, again, 20 Prosperity 12, Change of Keys, Open Truth Ministry. Thank you, and thank you. And T-Pack 5000, Free Life Task, FG, Little Bear, Mystifying, and Zen1 AZ. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say we're switching over to Jams. I didn't realize how long we've been running, but we're heading over there now. So for those of you that want to finish off, make sure you go to Marfoogle Jams.
Yes, if you want to hear the shoutro and all of the web-only content, make sure to go over and jump over to Marfoogle Jams. All right, and then, Dex, why don't you just go